As we take a few minutes to slow down, I encourage you to start some nice deep breathing. You can place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And see what it's like to focus on having your belly be what expands and contracts rather than your chest. This is a way that we can deepen our breathing and calm our nervous system. You can see what it's like to lengthen your exhale. Maybe even lengthen it beyond your inhale. Maybe even start to let yourself take a few sighs, releasing any tension or stress from the day so far. Setting aside any worries, cares, to-do list items. You can imagine placing them on a shelf, knowing you can come back to them after this time, but they're not going to serve you or help you during this time. So you're getting settled in. Before we close our eyes, I invite you to look around you. Even if you're sitting somewhere that you've been more times than you can count, let yourself just notice what's around, notice what you see. If you don't know what to look at, you can notice, are there any shadows on the wall, the floor, the ceiling? If you're outside, on the ground or on any buildings that you see or trees. Let yourself just become really present with what's in front of you for a moment. With a nice deep breath, you can close your eyes if you're comfortable. If you'd prefer not to, you can just find a little spot, maybe on the floor or out in front of you, to focus on. And you can let your mind start to bring up imagery of your internal world. We are just starting this exploration of parts of self, learning about and getting to know parts of us that we maybe don't know that well, especially when it comes to our spiritual walks and practices. Parts of us that we've maybe hidden or tucked away. Maybe parts of us that feel forgotten, unseen, invisible. Could be parts of us that don't feel valued, that don't feel worth it. Maybe parts of us that feel too much. Parts of us that maybe feel like an imposter. And just let yourself be curious about what comes up, knowing that we're just in the initial stages of this journey, so it's going to take time to get to know parts of ourselves. But just right now and today, what is it that's coming to mind? What is some imagery that's brewing, even if it seems silly or odd? Just let yourself notice it without judgment and with curiosity. And as we continue some nice deep breaths, I encourage you to focus your attention on a part of yourself, or maybe what feels like kind of a little cluster of parts of yourself that seem to go together. And this might be a part that you noticed in our first slowdown, or maybe it's a part or something that you're just noticing today for the first time. whatever it is that you're noticing, let yourself just pause and be really curious. Again, using this idea of what's right in front of you, really noticing and being present with what's right in front of you, but that now being the imagery that's coming to mind. The imagery that gives us more of a concrete idea of these parts of ourselves that can otherwise feel a bit ambiguous. So continue those deep breaths. Let yourself notice, how old does this part of you or these parts of you seem to be? And there is no right or wrong answer here. So if this part of you seems to be 3 years old, or 14 years old, or a little baby, or 9 years old, it's not something to overthink or try to get perfectly right, but just let yourself notice almost a gut intuition. What do you sense? What do you see coming up in the imagery? And what are some other things that you maybe notice? What's the posture of this part of you or these parts of you? Does this part feel known and seen, whether that's by you, by God, by others? And is this part of you really comfortable or feeling safe with you entering in and wanting to get to know him or her? And whatever you're noticing, you can pause and take a breath. Consider what a helpful question might be to ask this part if you think this part or these parts of you are open to you engaging. If you don't sense an openness or a safety to engage, I would encourage you to take a step back and see if this changes the dynamic, and if not, to respect that space that seems to be requested by this part of you. And while we never want to force work with parts, what can be tricky is we don't want to possibly just walk away or kind of abandon them when that might not be what they want. They might just be really scared or overwhelmed at first. And so whatever you're sensing or noticing, take a moment to see if you can tell, is any hesitation or fear based in truly wanting, you to go away and not get to know them? Or are they just scared, overwhelmed, confused, don't know what's going on, that someone's trying to get to know them? And if it would be helpful for me to offer an example of a question you might ask a part or parts of you at this stage in things, I encourage you to simply ask, is it okay if I keep coming back and we get to know each other more and more? You can even offer a statement to front load that, saying something like, I would really like to get to know you, and it makes me really sad that I don't know you. I would love to connect, and I want to make sure that that's okay with you. Or I want to check in and see how you feel about that. as you're starting this dialogue and just noticing how this part of you is receiving your presence and your questions and your posture, I invite you to notice if God's presence is anywhere near in this imagery. And whether you sense God's presence or don't sense his presence, I encourage you to notice how this part of you or these parts of you feel about that. Do they long for nearness with God? Do these parts of you even really have a sense of who God is? And there are really no right or wrong answers here. When we walk through our faith journey, it's extremely common that there are younger parts of us that have not yet cultivated that kind of relationship with God. And if they are not integrated into our spiritual growth, our spiritual development, they might continue to not really know who God is, to not be connected in ways that the thinking part of us or the doing part of us might be. The part of us that goes to Bible study or does our devotionals or listens to sermons, listens to podcasts. And so just pause for a few more moments here to make some room to see if this part of you, or maybe any other part of you that wants to make themselves known, really kind of getting the lay of the land of where is God's presence or absence here? Not so we can swoop in and try to fix it or change it right away, just that we can really know what's the starting point. As you continue some really nice deep breaths, the last thing that we're going to do is reassure these parts of yourself that you will come back, that you're grateful for this time with them, that you're excited to get to know them more. Offering a sense of value and appreciation, a sense of warmth, a sense of wanting to build trust and safety. And with this, offering a sense of acceptance for wherever this part or these parts of you are in relation to God. Letting them know that it's okay to be exactly where they are. You don't judge them. God doesn't judge them for being right where they are. There's not shame being thrown on them. God's mercy, his loving kindness, and his embrace are what's waiting for them whenever they feel ready. And they don't need to be pushed or shoved into that right now. If there's some sort of block, some sort of stuckness that needs a little more help and a little more tending to. You can continue some nice deep breaths. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes to come back to the space. Lengthen your spine. Stretch your back or your neck. And while it might seem odd to check in with these parts for such a short amount of time, something I'd like to offer that you can read more about in a great book called What Happened to You. It's a book co-authored by Oprah and a psychologist, Dr. Perry, I believe. When little kids have been through really hard things, it's overwhelming for an adult to come in and try to build trust with them full on in a way that would include all this time So you kind of think about maybe even a therapist and an hour-long therapy session. That could be way too much and way overwhelming. And what that kid might need more is something like just a few minutes of connection, just a few minutes of a touch point that's dependable and reliable and continues. And that's really what we're offering here in these slowdowns. So I really encourage you, if there's any sense from these parts of you that long for more and want more, you can almost imagine them getting to hang out with you, be in a safe place in your home. And you can reassure them that you're going to spend more time together, that this is only the start, just the beginning. And with that, I invite you to take a few nice deep cleansing breaths, some nice big sighs in your exhales. And have a lovely day.